My name is Nozibele. My name is Nozibele Qamngana. Welcome to my YouTube channel. If you are new to this channel, please make sure that you subscribe and join the rest of the family. If you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much for coming through again. I really appreciate your support. So today I am bringing you yet another HIV related topic. One of my very first videos, you will remember, was about a topic pertaining to a person being intentionally infected with HIV and what does the law say. So in that video, I explained that South Africa, unlike other countries such as the US, does not have HIV specific laws. So there was a time when, the advocacy world and many people in the HIV sector felt it was necessary for South Africa to revise its laws to have an HIV specific law to prosecute people that are going around intentionally infecting people with HIV. But the Law Society and the government thought, no, the laws that are in place already are sufficient to be used in a situation where someone intentionally infects another person with HIV. The laws that I'm talking about is murder, attempted murder, assault, and rape, right? There hasn't been a lot of cases in South Africa that have gone to court and successfully proven that this person knew their HIV status, they didn't tell me, and subsequently to that, they infected me with HIV, or they exposed me to HIV. There's only about a handful. I think there's one in particular that I can remember, and it was like an HIV counselor. He knew his HIV status, didn't tell this person, they had sex, and subsequently to that, she got infected, right? But even that, it was difficult to prove because it's one word over the other. The only reason why he lost that case was because his version of events was inconsistent. In comparison to the other person. So the court was like, we don't know which one to believe. And this person has been very consistent in terms of what she says happened. And for that reason, we think that you are guilty. So 3 things that you need to prove for a successful case is, 1, you need to know your HIV status, before the encounter. You need to prove that you were HIV negative before you met this person. You need to prove that the other person knew their HIV status. So in this case, it might be required that this person, submits his medical records, And the 3rd thing that you need to prove is that you did not consent into having unprotected sex with this person. So let's say, for example, you were having sex and this person was using a condom. Just as he's about to ejaculate, he takes out the condom and then ejaculates inside of you. As a result, infecting you with HIV. So you need to prove, he can ejaculate inside of me without a condom. You see how it's very difficult to prove that? Because obviously it's not a party when these things happen. It's between 2 people. Which brings me now to the topic of today. What happens when someone discloses your HIV status without your consent, without your permission? So I often receive several of these messages on Facebook, right? And Nozi, I was in this relationship, it was going well, I disclosed, my positive HIV status, everything was going well, but the relationship did not work out. But my problem now is this person knows very well that I haven't gotten to a point where I'm comfortable to publicly disclose my HIV status, let alone also talk about it or disclose it to my family, my friends. He was the only one who knew about my status. Now that we have broken up, he is threatening to publicly disclose my HIV status. What do I do? How does the law protect me? Or sometimes I've also seen this on social media where more often than not, it's people that were very close and knew each other very well. And then there is a war or they're fighting on social media. And then they start airing each other's laundry. And then someone will say, hey, you mustn't talk a lot because at 9 p.m. when you need to take your pills, right? And anyone in their right sense of mind will know, what are they alluding to? The fact that they need to take their ARVs at 9 p.m. and now subsequently we know that this person is HIV positive. So I think we can all agree that we do know that it is unconstitutional, it is against the law to disclose someone's HIV status without their consent, without their permission. However, I think we sometimes miss where we know what to do next. How do we further protect ourselves? And how do we make this person accountable for what they just did, right? So before I get into that, as I was doing my own research, I came across a very interesting case. Now, it was back in the early 2000s, but I still think it's quite relevant to the topic at hand. It involves a particular minister in South Africa, and that is Patricia de Lille. So back in 1999, before ARVs were largely available in South Africa, the South African government embarked on a clinical trial to better understand, the effects of ARVs before they distribute them, right? So these 3 women that were participating in the trial went to approach Patricia de Lille, and they had concerns because they felt there were too many fatalities and there were also too many illnesses as a result of the clinical trial. Is it because of the ARVs? They don't know, but they just wanted the assistance to kind of understand what was going on. I guess Patricia was one of the people that were advocating for the distribution of the ARVs back then. So she ordered that there should be an inquiry over this clinical trial. So when she gets the report contains names of the participants, including the 3 women that went to approach her, right? So to cut the long story short, back around about, I think, 2001, if I'm not mistaken, a journalist is approached by a publishing company called New Africa Books, if I'm not mistaken, to write a book on Patricia de Lille. And one of the chapters also includes this incident. So in the book, it includes the names of these participants. It doesn't say participant A, B, C. No. It says Nozibele, Qamngana, and so forth. Then the women get hold of this information and they go to the courts to stop the distribution of this book, and also subsequently to that to make sure that their names are not included. So in their defense, Patricia, the journalist, and the publishing company, they say, no. We were under the duress that all due diligence was done, because when we received the report from the clinical trial, it included, your names. And also it says, Mana, you had signed consent forms. So we were under the impression that you understood everything, that was going to happen with that trial. So Tina, to disclose one, your HIV status, and also to include your names, it's nothing new, because even that clinical trial could be made available, to everyone. So the 3 women say, no. The consent forms were actually not explained properly to us. We're not sure what we're signing. So please make sure that our names are excluded and this book is prevented from being distributed until this is done. So they go to the court and sue the publishing company, the journalist, and Patricia de Lille. They want to be compensated 200,000 rand because they feel that, their right to privacy was compromised, their well-being emotionally, psychologically. There was also a report from a psychologist saying that these people have experienced, trauma. And they often experience anxiety because of what happened. And you can imagine, guys, this happened in 1999, 2000, when HIV is still a taboo, but back then it was like no one wanted to speak about it. So in the judgment, the court says, okay, we can accept that you were under the duress that all due diligence were done, that the consent forms were signed, and they were aware that their names could be used at any time. However, now that they had made you aware that they don't want their names to be included, you had the opportunity to take their names out. And to include the names of these participants would not have really, made the book even more interesting. You could have said fake name Nozibele, Mayaba, or whatever the case may be. So because of that, we definitely do agree that their right to privacy was compromised, and they did suffer, emotional trauma. And you should pay these 3 women 35,000 rand each. That was a judgment. I think the worst story that I've ever heard, from these messages that I was telling you about, is someone saying, okay, they did tell, my family members, or they did tell someone so-and-so, and I suffered really, emotional trauma and all of that, and now people know my HIV status. So the next thing I did was to go to the police and tell them what happened. Then the police said, I must call this person. The person went to the police station. They were both put into a room and they stated both their cases. And then the other person was asked to apologize. And then they were sent home and nothing happened afterwards. So the first thing that I'm going to say when it comes to the matter is that this is more of a civil rather than a criminal case. So police cannot arrest someone because they wrote a status or they disclosed an HIV status of a person unless the court instructs them to. And I'll get into that later, right? So you going to the police, unfortunately, will not really make any difference. Any police that did this whole process of calling both people and then the other person needed to apologize. It was probably one of those small communities where everyone knows each other and we all should all live in harmony and we shouldn't fight. But other than that, it ends there. So if you want justice, you basically need to file a civil case, similarly to what these 3 women did against the publisher, the journalist, and Patricia Lille, and requesting that they be compensated for the fact that their right to privacy was invaded, and they also suffered, emotional trauma as a result of their HIV status and their names being publicly, disclosed. You approach the lawyer, and the lawyer will do all the paperwork. You submit your evidence, and you go to court. How many of these cases have been trialed in South Africa? I'll be very honest, not many. Probably a handful, and I'll include the links in the description box for you to see some of the judgments. I guess people feel like, okay, the damage has already been done, so what's the point? And then the others are like, but we don't have the resources to go to a lawyer. There's legal aid though, so it's fine. I might as well deal with the consequences. And also the emotional roller coaster of having to relive all of that, because you're probably going to be called and share your own version of events and all of that jazz. That people are like, you know what, it has happened, let me deal with the consequences of what has already happened. But I would definitely advise for someone to consider this process if they've been through something like this, because I feel like we can't get used to people just saying whatever they want and doing whatever they want under the pretense that you're not going to do anything. So if you can't afford a lawyer, there's legal aid. Literally, Google the closest legal aid office. I mean, I remember even Andisiwa Dwenga, who I featured a couple of months ago. Andisiwa did not have her own lawyer. Andisiwa was assisted by NGOs, companies that did this sort of thing, by only literally Googling, who can represent me, who can assist me, what are companies out there that are focusing on fighting for the rights of people that are living with HIV. That's how her case literally went into the High Court through that process. So don't think about just because you don't have money to afford a lawyer and yeah, that's it. Yamana, you should just let it go. If you are someone that wants to proceed and get justice, you can definitely do that. So on social media, when I was introducing the topic, I also talked about the fact that there is Uttam Tora, right, who does not have a single cent to his name, right, who's still living under his mom's roof. He does not have any assets attached to him. So Uttam Tora does this. He discloses someone's HIV status without their consent. And Uttam Tora is ordered to pay, let's say in this case, that 35,000 rand. Uttam Tora is 35,000 rand. And that's another thing, by the way, that I think people are like, even if I send this person to court, they can't even afford themselves, they can't even afford 10 rand. How are they going to be able to compensate me for all that I've gone through? Which actually reminds me of this case that I'm following on social media. So this guy, I honestly think he just did not know any better. It was one of those people that was chasing clout and thought he could get as many views as possible on his YouTube channel or whatever. And while they were busy talking or covering this particular story, they said a media personality in South Africa, Ubonang Mateba, they related her story with drugs. And I'm not sure what the accusation was in particular, but it came out as in Ubonang is on drugs and all of that. And they didn't even say allegedly. That's why I'm like, he just did not know any better. So Bonang goes on and files like a civil case and demands 500,000 rand. Okay, doesn't want an apology. Okay, wants 500,000 rand. Now this person, I don't know this guy, but everyone is like, I can't afford 500,000 rand, and I sure as hell know that guy. Judging him from afar cannot afford 500,000 rand. 500,000 rand is clearly in a gun, right? So everyone is like, oh, just let it go, just ask him to apologize and just let it go because he's not going to be able to afford 500,000 rand. No, Bonang is continuing with the case, defamation of character, right? For what he said. And what I'm thinking is, obviously it goes case by case. With defamation of character, it is sometimes very hard to prove that your reputation suffered because of something someone said. But in this case, when it comes to disclose my HIV status and you are suing them and you are going ahead with a civil case, more chances than not, if you have the right evidence, you can literally win your case. So let's say the judgment is, you need to pay this person 20,000 rand and they can't afford the 20,000 rand. Guess what? 20,000 rand is a fine for what you did, okay? And mostly, the court says if you fail to pay this 20,000 rand or this 10,000 rand, if you fail to come up with this money, then you should spend X amount of months or years or whatever the case may be in jail, okay? That's how it goes. Failure to pay the fine is equivalent to a suspended sentence or X number of months in jail. This is also going to be, considering what is the precedent. So you definitely need to be very careful about the things that you say, okay, and the things that you do to people, because there are consequences. Particularly with this topic, a person living with HIV has full rights like any other South African citizen or any other citizen of any country. Further than that, they have the right to privacy, to dignity, right? So they cannot be discriminated because of their HIV status, right? So those are the things that you need to consider. If you find yourself in a situation where your HIV status was disclosed without your permission, without your consent, and if you are that person on the other side, please just don't do things like that. And especially when it comes to social media, people just puke like whatever they want. They say the most embarrassing things, the most vile things on social media, with the thought that they cannot be traced. There's no consequences for the things that they say or do. So I hope this has really been an eye-opener. I hope you enjoyed this video. Until next time, guys, bye.